This is Father Arno Moriani.
Arno, I've informed the Diocese of Albayula. They're stunned and say it's a setup. Are you sure about what you're putting forth?
The testimony of Father Gregorius seems conclusive to me.
How could a priest encourage practices of the sort? That's the crux of the matter. I spoke about it upstairs and learned to my consternation that we're not dealing with an isolated instance here. Believe it or not, this is the 20th century and there's a fresh outbreak of belief in vampires. It's probably connected to the success of certain novels that have troubled impressionable minds. And so, I have new instructions for you.
I suppose that I close the Calugaro file then?
Certainly. And you open another one on vampires.
Excuse me?
You heard me right. Study the legend. Demolish it. Prove that it is not based on reality. We'll give your report widespread distribution.
Yes, but hasn't the Church already taken a position on the question?
To be sure. Benedict XIV formally condemned belief in vampires, but that was 2 centuries ago. It's time to bring his message up to date.
What exactly am I to do?
Seek the origins of the myth, but also pay attention to its literary aspects, its recent manifestations. Show that those phenomena that terrorize the naive are either pure fabrication or have explanations that aren't supernatural. Let me insist on one point, Arno. For your research, it's important that you consult the best scientific experts. We need the authority of a doctor and a historian to support your conclusions.
Do you think that a rational discourse can vanquish superstition?
I know the battle is never definitively won, but it must be fought. I hope the task doesn't seem too daunting for you.
Not at all. You're entrusting me with an unexpected job, but a very interesting one. I'll get at it without delay.
I'm counting on you. No, it's better that I contact them if need be. The Diocese of Albayula let it be known that the canonization of a local native would enable the Catholics, who are in minority in Transylvania, to reaffirm their identity with regard to the Orthodox. This can be very important in a nation under construction. That's why the process began so quickly. It would seem self-evident, but the diocese might object. I'd rather not run the risk. Unless circumstances force you to. If you had to celebrate a funeral mass, for example. Your mission is delicate, Arno. It's difficult to accomplish without offending someone. But I have faith in you. You'll know how to act suitably.
Goodbye, Your Eminence.
Be well, Arno.
It just so happens that my congregation has ordered me to undertake an inquiry on the vampires.
Inquire? We have to fight!
Suppose they exist. If that's the case, isn't it essential to study them first? Know thy enemy.
Ours is wily and difficult to get at, unless we take the path of the dragon. That was Martha's conviction.
The path of the dragon?
The dragon. The vampire. Dracula. All these names designate our adversary. The path of the dragon leads to his lair. Look at this file that Martha entrusted me with on her return from Turkey. She had established that the path comprised 7 trials. The related documents are sorted in 7 folders.
I know that work. It's Raphael's Crucifixion.
Yes, photographed by Martha. According to her, this painting has a connection with the first stage on the path of the dragon.
Really? The painting has a hidden meaning?
Martha thought so. She spoke to me of other versions of the same work of art, slightly modified reproductions she examined in private collections. According to her, to understand the hidden message, the original's not enough. It has to be compared to the copies and the variations noted.
Do you have other versions of the painting?
Unfortunately not. Martha gave me this file at the beginning of her research, for she feared her papers would be stolen. Afterwards, we had a falling out, and she didn't transmit anything else to me. I'm certainly lacking some essential pieces.
We're radically changing style, you could say.
This other document is a sketch Martha made of an ancient bas-relief.
The inscription is hard to make out. It vaguely resembles Enochian.
But the drawing is clear. The figure is slashing his veins.
I see the sketch is classified in the first folder with the crucifixion. Is there a connection then between these two documents and the first stage of the path?
For Martha, there was no doubt about it. Here's a sketch of another bas-relief, from the same place as the previous one. Martha associated it with the second trial.
There aren't any other documents? Nothing for the 5 last tests?
They're all I have, but I'm sure that Martha found many others, if I'd only been more conciliatory. Father, we have to follow the path of the dragon. Let's go to Turkey. Since Martha went there, together we'll succeed.
I don't think that my superiors would appreciate that initiative. However, I promise that I'll think about it.
Unfortunately, those I know aren't accessible. But I really do need help to assemble the documents about the path. One day, I found her in a state of shock. She wouldn't tell me anything, but I understood that she had been threatened. I told her she was taking too many risks. She wasn't listening to me. So I got angry. She answered that she'd do without my help, and she never spoke to me again about the path. It was stupid of me. If I'd backed her up all the way, she might still be alive. Today, it's my duty to finish what she began. Alone, if you won't help me. Martha said it was the only way to discover objects and symbols related to each trial. She added that without that knowledge, it was impossible to attain the end of the path. She haunted public and private libraries. I know that she frequently visited the Alba Iula Museum. It burned shortly after her death. I have a feeling it wasn't by accident. I went to give blood at the request of Dr. Maria Florescu.
You didn't try to recover any documents?
What's the point in harassing young Maria? I'm sure there's nothing left of Martha's archives. Our enemy has had plenty of time to destroy them.
Dr. Florescu came by. She asked for you to go to the dispensary because she needs blood donors, if you're so inclined.
Fine, I'll go there.
Did you like that? Me, I never go up there. Anyway, with my legs, it ain't possible anymore. She's back. The swindler. With her cards and her dice. She's cheated many a man. What a scandal. Those ain't legends, Father. Begging your pardon, but you shouldn't talk about those things. It brings bad luck. Tell me, Father, do you think Martha will be sanctified?
Do you mean canonized?
Yeah, that's it. I hope she'll be canonized. A saint and a pilgrimage. That's what Vladivista is missing. That'd sure make people come, you know.
I haven't the heart to tell him the truth.
Come in! It's open!
Thank you for stopping by. I noticed that my blood stocks were really insufficient. Would you let me take a sample of yours?
Certainly. I was a priest medic during the war. I saw many lives saved thanks to transfusions.
Oh, so you're a nurse as well. Then you'll be able to do it yourself. Great. I have to rush off to see a patient on the other side of the village.
Oh, what exactly do I have to do?
Draw your blood and place the bottle in the refrigerated chest. The combination is easy to remember. The date the dispensary was built. They're coming to get me. I have to go. Could you mark your blood type in the analysis reports? And also determine the types of the last 3 donors? I didn't have time to run the tests. Oh yes, and if the phone rings, please answer. See you later.
All right, down to work. I hope I haven't lost the touch. The Descent of Man by Charles Darwin. Excerpt from the Medical Chronicles of the Bucharest Royal Academy. Treatise on Statistics, Theory and Practice. Exercitatio Anatomica de Mortu Cordis et Sanguinis in Animalibus, a reprint of the famous book by William Harvey, who discovered in 1629 the circulation of blood. Statistical demonstration on the utility of asepsis in the operating room. To think that 30 years ago, surgeons operated without even washing their hands. Surgery during the Great War, with an appendix on the Albert Houston method and Dr. Jean Brau's research. A volume in German. It concerns the discovery of blood types by Karl Landsteiner. Spontaneous generation, the end of a myth. That's a look back at Pasteur's revolution. I have to sterilize this equipment before I use it. It's not hot enough to boil the water.
This is Professor Heinrich von Kruger.
This is Father Arno Moriani. Dr. Florescu has gone out. May I take a message?
Please ask him to call me back as soon as possible at Munich 321941.
I'll be sure to do that. Goodbye, Professor.
Goodbye, Father.
First, I have to wash my hands with soap. Never handle medical equipment with dirty hands. During the war, I saw far too many comrades die from infected wounds. I've done this hundreds of times to other people, but giving yourself a shot is not the same thing. Be brave. It has to be done. Ouch! I missed the vein. That's the right place. All that's left to do is press the needle deep into the vein. The blood is coagulated. I must have forgotten something. Oh well, I'll just have to start all over. That's the right place. All that's left to do is press the needle deep into the vein. The ampoule is full. Perfect. Now I have to store the bottle of blood in the refrigerated cabinet. The door of the refrigerated cabinet mustn't stay open too long. Now I have to figure out my blood type, as well as that of the 3 last donors, and update the analysis reports. Perfect. I'm sure of my results. Maria should be happy. I've done my work well. I finished the sample and the tests. Have you been back long?
I should have come help you, shouldn't I?
I was delighted to be of assistance. But now I have to think of my own work.
Of course. I hope your investigation is going well.
It has changed character. As strange as it might seem, I now am ordered to study some supernatural creatures, vampires.
Vampires? Like Dracula?
Dracula?
Don't you know it? It's a wonderful novel. I'll get it for you. Look at this book. It's Dracula by Bram Stoker. Oscar Wilde said it was the most beautiful novel of the century.
What a massive novel. Let's peruse it to see if there are any interesting parts.
I was captivated by this novel, and you know the strangest thing? The author used Vlad Tepes as his model for the character of Dracula.
Vlad Tepes? The voivode?
The very same one. The one who used to rule from the Castle of Twilight, whose ruins you must have noticed. Vlad Tepes, nicknamed Dracula. I can guess what comes next. He wants me to call back as soon as possible.
You don't really want to, if I'm not mistaken.
Professor Kruger is a great scientist. He worked with Martha and now insists on me continuing her research. But I haven't a research scientist's soul. Anyway, it's too much work.
Now, isn't that a shame?
Oh, please, Father, no sermons. I promise that I'll take it upon myself to finish the analyses he wants from me. I'm afraid not. For me, vampires are romantic fictional characters, not subjects to be studied. In fact, I did observe several spontaneous cures, but, you know, this sort of thing happens relatively frequently. Spontaneous does not necessarily mean miraculous. Everything is possible. Stoker speaks of this voivod Dracula who earned his nickname attacking the Turks beyond the Great River at the very border of their country. That clearly signifies Vlad Tepes. That prince spent his youth as a captive of the Turks. Afterwards, he fought them fiercely. The word has two meanings, devil or dragon. It's been translated into every language, and I've heard that the director, Murnau, is going to do a film version, but I don't know if I will have the opportunity to see the movie. I like him. One day he came to the dispensary and took a picture of me. He gave me some prints. I know him. He came to the dispensary too, to give his blood.
I have to talk with Janos. I wonder if he knows that his great hero, Vlad Tepes, served as the model for Dracula, the vampire. Hello, Janos. I have a surprise for you. I've just been ordered to conduct an investigation into vampires.
What do you know? Anything can happen. I was talking about the same subject with Stefan Luca, who just arrived at the inn. He's kind of a fanatic, and firmly believes in the existence of vampires. You should question him.
You're more useful to me because you're a historian. I have several questions to ask you, particularly about Vlad Tepes.
The recognized expert on the subject was Professor Van Bergen.
The great Orientalist. The man who crisscrossed Asia for the English Secret Service?
The very one. At his death, his superb collection was bequeathed to his successor, Professor Irina Buxov. Speak about her to Stefan Luca. I think he has her number.
So Professor Boxoff would be the person to consult?
Without a doubt. She possesses remarkable pieces on the subject you are interested in. A manuscript of a biography of Vlad Tepes in particular.
Good. I shall get in touch with her.
That's a legend forged by his enemies. Stoker was inspired by it to write a very bad novel. It's a journey of initiation that some traditions associate with Vlad Tepes. Most likely because Vlad was called Dracula, which means the dragon or the devil. But it's more related to occultism than to history. Professor Buxov will fill you in better than I can. I assume she took some of your blood? She gets everybody to contribute.
Irina Buksov? I tried to contact her, but I was rejected. She's incredibly mistrustful. It's a shame, because I think she knows a great deal about the Path of the Dragon.
Do you have her phone number? Who knows? Maybe I'll be luckier than you.
Do you think so? Possibly. You're a priest. That inspires trust. Call 445-827 in Budapest. But whatever you do, don't say you know me.
Number, please. This is Irina Buksov.
This is Father Arno Moriani. Hello, Professor. At the request of my hierarchy, I'm investigating the persistence of certain superstitions. You are an authority on questions of folklore and popular beliefs.
You flatter me. Let's say that I have had the good fortune to inherit the library of my predecessor, Professor Herman von Bergen. But tell me, what exactly is your investigation focused on?
The belief in those imaginary creatures called vampires.
Vampires. You're interested in vampires.
Just to demystify them, the Catholic Church wants to fight this superstition.
I have serious reserves about getting into the subject. I am in great demand, you know. Could you be more precise about the framework in which you're conducting your inquiry?
I was entrusted with it by Monsignor Felicio Briganti of the Congregation of Rites. If need be, you can contact him by calling Vatican 63.
Your references are serious. I'll accept to help you, Father, but I don't trust the telephone. Could you visit me at my office in Budapest?
Certainly. As early as tomorrow, if it's all right with you.
Very good. I'll expect you.
Oh, I forgot. I was told that you possess a volume related to my inquiry. A biography of Vlad Tepes?
That's true. Professor von Bergen left me Michel Beheim's account in verse. It's a 15th century manuscript, very precious. But did you know that the German prose version was reprinted in 1905? It's a brochure entitled Geschichte Dracula Weide, brought out by the Friends of the Vatican Library.
Published by the Friends of the Vatican Library? In that case, it won't be difficult for me to procure a copy. Goodbye, Professor.
Goodbye, Father. Number, please.
This is Cardinal Felicio Briganti.
This is Father Arno Moriani.
Delighted to hear your voice. So, Mr. Devil's Advocate, what's the weather like in Transylvania?
Stormy. But that doesn't bother me. It gives the countryside a kind of tragic coloring.
My goodness, Arno, you haven't changed. What can I do for you?
I intend to go have a discussion with Professor Irina Buksov in Budapest to complete my file on vampires.
Very good. Will you be coming back to Rome directly afterwards?
If you don't see any problem with it, I'll go back to Vladoviste first. I'll be more tranquil there to write out my conclusions.
Ah, an excellent idea. You'll be able to take advantage of the fresh country air. I also plan on spending a week or two in the country.
I almost forgot. Could you have a work that was published by the Friends of the Vatican Library sent to me?
Certainly.
It's a bound volume, Geschichte Dracula Weida, reprinted in 1905.
No problem. I'll send it to you at your inn. Let me insist on one point, Arno. For your research, it's important that you consult the best scientific experts. We need the authority of a doctor and a historian to support your conclusions.
I understand.
And after you've finished your work, make sure you get some rest.
Goodbye, Your Eminence.
Be well, Arno.
Number, please. Alba Eula, put me through to Germany. Munich, 321941.
This is Professor Heinrich von Kruger.
This is Father Arno Moriani. Professor, I'm calling back to ask for your help.
How can I help you?
Well, it's rather delicate to explain. You should know, first of all, that I belong to the Holy Congregation of Rites. I came to Vladiviste to investigate the life of Martha Caligarl.
Would you like me to talk to you about her? She was a remarkable woman.
To tell the truth, my mission has changed. For reasons that would be a little long to explain, I now have to investigate vampires.
Vampires? Don't tell me. The Catholic Church has started to believe in vampires.
On the contrary, my superiors want to combat this belief. They're alarmed to see how resistant it still is in the 20th century.
Yeah, very good. If it's to fight superstition, you can count on my assistance.
It will be invaluable to me, for I need the viewpoint of a scientist on the vampire myth.
Do you realize this is the very subject of the research I was carrying out with Dr. Caligarl? We discovered a disease, the P syndrome, whose symptoms are quite similar to those attributed to the victims of vampires. So the legend is based on specific medical facts. Dr. Caligarl contacted me when she was caring for a patient called Marescu. His granulocytes showed a very curious anomaly. She sent me a blood sample by carrier pigeon, and we worked on this case together. The result of our collaboration was the discovery of P syndrome. Afterwards, we had to specify the cause of the disease and perfect a serum. For that, I needed statistical data. I asked Dr. Caligarl to take a large number of samples from the population of Vladiviste. Unfortunately, the war interrupted our research.
Did you pick up again with Martha Caligarl after the end of the hostilities?
It wasn't possible for me to contact her immediately. When I was finally able to phone the dispensary, she was dead. It was Dr. Florescu who answered me. Of course. I've been insisting for some time now that she do so. As soon as she sends me the results I'm missing, I'll be able to find a serum that's effective against P syndrome. I just say that they're not supernatural creatures, but there certainly do exist mentally ill people who are bloodthirsty. Look at Countess Elizabeth Báthory, who in the 16th century bled to death hundreds of young girls before she was walled up alive in her Carpathian castle. In addition, as I mentioned, patients afflicted with the P syndrome suffer from very odd physical and psychological disorders that make them resemble the victims of vampires. Oh, what did these patients do?
They went out alone in the night, as if they were answering a call. They ripped off the garlic necklaces the doctor had placed on them.
Somnambulism, allergy to garlic. Those signs are most likely associated with P syndrome, as are pallor, drawn features, anemia, and other symptoms we haven't yet discovered. Unfortunately, yes. What an abominable novel.
You're too severe. That's not what Oscar Wilde thought.
I won't tell you what I think of Oscar Wilde, and I'll limit myself to the novel. It's a tissue of inconsistencies. Let's see. Stoker affirms that those who die as victims of a vampire should become one in turn. So at that rate, vampirism should spread like an epidemic, with a growth rate faster than Fibonacci's famous immortal sequence. In a first stage, all of mankind would be vampirized, and then, in a second, the vampires would also disappear, not having any victims left to feed on. So Stoker's hypothesis is therefore perfectly absurd. No species can live without regulation. Stoker considers himself a historian and a scientist, but he's just an oddball. His novel is a collection of implausibilities. Take the character of Lucy. That woman, he keeps saying, is getting better until she just dies. A victim of Dracula, she's treated by transfusion. Blindly, of course, because at the time, we knew nothing of blood types. In those conditions, what are the chances the patient will accept the donor's blood?
About 1 out of 3, if my recollections are good. Nonetheless, in desperate cases, it's worth the trouble to try.
Certainly. But the good Professor Van Helsing, who is always described as a genius, repeated the operation with 4 different donors. The chances of survival for that poor Lucy then fell to less than 2%. It's probably the transfusions that killed her, and not Dracula. Let's get back to Van Helsing, supposedly an expert on vampires. He teaches us that they can read minds and change into bats. However, he's not worried about finding one of the latter at the window of the room in which he's holding a meeting. And then he seems so surprised that Dracula knows his plans. Ha! The naivety of that character is irritating. Yeah, I know the work of Murnau. They call it expressionism. But for me, those morbid fantasies have much more to do with pathology. Tell me, could I ask you a personal question? Listening to your voice, I have the feeling that you're a little tense.
Yes, I'm not sleeping well.
Nothing else? You can confide in me. I'm a doctor, you know.
Well, sometimes I get the feeling I'm being spied upon. I'm sure it's only an impression, but it's becoming an obsession.
Father Arno, you are sensitive and susceptible, like our late lamented Dr. Caligari. These are qualities, but they make you vulnerable. Above all, don't let your imagination govern you.
That's good advice. Thank you. I'll try to follow it. Goodbye, Professor.
Goodbye, Father.
He used to correspond regularly with Martha before the war. He didn't believe in vampires. According to him, the victims were sick people who needed to be cured. Martha shared his opinion at the beginning. It was during the war that she understood the truth.
Ozana, I'm leaving for Budapest for a day or 2. Would you please keep my room?
Well, that is...
Naturally, I'll pay you for my keep, even for the nights that I'm not here.
In that case, of course, Father. I'll keep your room for you. Tell me, Father, do you think Martha will be sanctified?
Do you mean canonized?
Yeah, that's it. I hope she'll be canonized. A saint and a pilgrimage. That's what Vladivista is missing. That'd sure make people come, you know.
Luana.
Certain things, but I also know the virtues of silence. I have a feeling that before the end you will know more than me about the dragon. As much as I want to know.